The Red Terror of Ethiopia and the Salem Witch Trials are both examples of mass hysteria, and though both can be categorized with extreme violence without proof to warrant this violence, the Red Terror was overall a more political and brutal venture. The Red Terror, also known as Ki Shibir, came after the removal of longtime Emperor of Ethiopia Haile Selassie. After Selassie's removal, a military junta known as the Derg assumed power in support of communist leader Mengistu Haile Mariam. The Derg began systematically murdering anyone suspected of being affiliated with a potential rival regime. Many atrocities were committed, and torture and sexual assault became normalities. The Salem Witch Trials, as shown in Arthur Miller's play The Crucible, were similar, as they also resulted in the death of innocents. Mass hysteria and fear of witchcraft spread through the Puritan town of Salem, where accusations ran rampant. These accusations were usually seen as proof of guilt, and as such, many innocent women and men were killed for crimes they couldn't possibly have committed. Both the Red Terror and the Salem Trials took preemptive action in the absence of legitimate proof that would hold its weight outside dictatorial or Puritan societies. Many people were arrested and sentenced without proof in both instances. In Salem, an accusation was enough for most townspeople to assume guilt, as was the case with Elizabeth Proctor and Sarah Good. In Ethiopia, arbitrary arrests were often made, and no proof was needed for the overpowered Derg to arrest, torture, or execute suspected revolutionaries. Another similarity is how extreme methods of punishment were used, though this was much more severe in Ethiopia than in Salem. Some of the first killings of the Red Terror were the shootings of people who were distributing EPRP, a rival faction's literature, during a rally. Evidently, Mengistu and Derg were not concerned with the severity of the crime when dealing punishment. Once captured, suspects were tortured, examples being burning, flogging, sexual abuse, hanging, whipping, and more unusual methods such as having fingernails torn out. On the other hand, Giles Corey was merely in contempt of court, and he was pressed to death with large stones. The other townsfolk who were accused of witchcraft were hung, despite a clear lack of proof. The primary difference between these two black marks on the timeline of history is the reasons for which the persecutions began. The Red Terror began for political reasons, as the primary goal was the consolidation of Mariam's power. He viewed this as righteous, and believed you would not bring about socialism without a Red Terror. The witch trials were an effort to keep clean the Puritan community of Salem, Massachusetts. In a highly religious and honorable place, witchcraft was perceived as a very real danger. Primarily, both persecuting groups believed in a cause and used it to justify their atrocities.